as of NISAR, and we're picking them one after another to see which of them can be a working template for any of the panels. Group 1 already got a working template. The RSDC report, there's already, AVM is going to be part of that group, and he's going to lead us to leverage on that report so we don't have to re-engineer the wheel. So this is a recap of yesterday. Again, the 8 priority areas, the 8 presidential priority areas, I beg your pardon, were strengthening national security for peace and prosperity, which was Group 1, led by technical facilitator, Professor D.J.U. Kala. Then Group 2 here is focusing on the reforming the economy to deliver sustained and inclusive growth, led by Dr. Mrs. Oguna. Then we had Group 3, focusing on accelerating diversification through industry, digitalization, creative arts, manufacturing, and innovation, led by Dr. Shoyombo Ayola. That's Group 3. Then we have Group 4. Group 4 focused on enhancing infrastructure and transportation as enablers of growth, led by Dr. Karim Wahid. Then Group 5 focused on unlocking energy and natural resources for sustained development. And the recommendation from Group 5, energy/power and natural resources on education, health, social investment as essential pillars of development, led by Dr. Vincent and Mr. Kenneth Uwa. That was Group 6. Group 7 focused on boosting agriculture to achieve food security. That's a very robust group, led by Professor T.S. Olubemi and Professor Sunday Atawodi. And finally, Group 8 focused on improving governance for effective service delivery, led by Dr. Murtala Oke. So these are the groups, and I also like to add that the LOC members, I think they are more clearly represented now. I could not take all of them yesterday. I would like to put it to context and put it on record. We have National Institute of Science of Social and Economic Research, NISA. We have Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR. We have NIPS. We have Nigerian Academy of Science. We have TETFON. We have Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria. We have PTDF. We have the presidency itself. We have COREN. We have National Commission for Colleges. That's NCCE for College of Education. We have NBTE. We also have National Universities Commission. That's NUC. We have Federal Ministry of Water Resources. We have Natural Agricultural Development Fund. We have NASENI. We have Ministry of Solid Minerals and Development, Solid Minerals Development. We have Raw Materials Research Council of Nigeria. And finally, we have Federal Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation. So these are the 21 LOC members that put all this together to co-create what we have shared for the past 2 days. And I would also like to acknowledge all other organizations that are duly represented here by delegates from their Director Generals or their ES or their DGs. And all these organizations are highly recognized. They are going to be onboarded as members of the working groups. So we take the working sessions you did yesterday extremely seriously. We take what we are trying to co-create extremely seriously. So by the end of the day, each of these working groups will become working groups on RDI codes in the absence of the minister. The closing remarks will be taken by, of course, the Executive Director of IKSD, Dr. Mustafa Ayo Popola. And we also have a vote of thanks from the Chief Strategic Officer of WACREN, Mr. Omo. Then after which, we expect the minister to now give us his keynote address, which is titled Innovative Financing of Well-Coordinated RDI. So we expect that by the time we have the keynote from the Minister of Budget, some of the very cleric, actionable items of the outcomes of the working groups will be ready. So we can immediately channel our energy to him, put him on the spot, and hope we leave here with a good commitment from him. And his commitment statement will be taken. Then, following that, we should have the inauguration of the 8 working groups. the 8 working groups. We'll inaugurate them. The minister will do the inauguration himself, and we expect him to be joined on stage for a cover for that inauguration. The Honorable Minister himself, Honorable Abike, chairman or the chairman of the working groups, then the CSO of Wakren, and as well as the executive director of RIKSD. And we will move on to establish the next steps. We must have a short-term next steps of what is happening to the RDI coordination, so that we all live here engaged and we know what we're looking up to. That will be taken by the executive director of RIKSD. Then we'll have a group photo session with the minister outside. Interactions with the press will follow, and we can have our lunch/dinner, as the case may be. And we expect to network as much as possible, and also prepare to receive you guys again for the second RDI coordination summit, anywhere around Nigeria or maybe in Africa. So thank you so much. I remain John. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Okay, so it's quite a full day, and would have to observe some breaks in between, but every item on the agenda is critical. It will require all your support and attention and commitment for us to pull this through, and I urge you to give it all you have so we can have a great end of conference today. We were supposed to have a panel right now, but I have to still say we're waiting for NOTAP, the work they do. They haven't been represented in the past, they weren't represented in the past 2 days, but we had it on good authority that they will be attending. So after that panel, I think we should begin to even get ready for the 8 groups, the think tank session. I understand you're continuing today, and there'll be time to present your findings. So I would ask that we tarry a while that panel gets ready. In the absence of NOTAP, I would ask that we listen to a short talk. It would have been a presentation really, but okay, so we will have that panel, but also have a talk back from the audience. So I would then ask the panelists to please come. The first will be Jerry. Where's Jerry seated? Jerry, please come. Applaud him as he comes. And Kadri. Where is Kadri? Yes, please. Come over this way. Interesting. So great. Good to have you. And then, of course, we will put Omo Owaya on that panel. You don't clap for him. You know, I wish you guys knew the backbone of this. So you'd even have clapped more. There are silent workers, but they're very effective. So NOTAP will join them when they make it. So we will. I might also be able to interject. I hope I will, but from this side. So that's it. I would leave you in the very safe, comfortable hands of Omo Oaya. He would be a panelist and also moderate things in some form. So I'm leaving the stage for him to take this session through and then also invite you to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think the title speaks for itself. So we've been talking about RDI coordination for the last 2 or 3 days, and we all know that data is the new oil. That's and it underpins a lot of what we've been discussing. But we thought it would be useful to continue the conversation that started on the floor about open data and open science by having a panel which you can sort of interrogate, and then they can tell you a little bit more about what the viewpoints they were trying to share. So I will start first with a broader perspective, but in this case we're talking digital infrastructure, have usable data that you can share. So, but I'll let Jerry introduce himself too.
Morning. Yes. Thank you very much, Omo. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jerry Selanga. I work for an organization called Invest in Open Infrastructure, and we are a global nonprofit that works to increase investment and adoption of open infrastructures to make sure that research is equitable, and also to make sure that we actually able to kind of decentralize kind of the leadership for Africa in also a broader sphere. As my colleague has mentioned, the issue of open science is quite important. We are seeing the world now move towards more open science, and I think a very good example of the importance of open science was when we had the COVID-19 pandemic, and you could see without open science we could not be able to innovate as quickly to be able to find a solution. For example, some of these big pharma companies had to actually relax some of their patent protections to make sure that the underlying data and the underlying resources could actually be decentralized and used by other researchers across the world to actually be able to look at how can we be able to co-develop and co-create and make sure that we're able to develop these vaccines immediately or faster. So that's kind of just a preamble to the work that we do at IOI. We look at doing 3 things. One is investment, so funding of research institutions across the continent and across the world. The other one is how do we actually be able to support capacity building on open science. And the third one is how do we also make sure that data, particularly when you look at the insights that you need to be able to adopt open science and open infrastructures, are widely available. So I look forward to more participation on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So what I'm hoping to do here is not to just inundate you with feedback from them, but I will just sample the room a little bit. Now, just by a show of hands, who's familiar with open science? That's one hand. So, did you put your hand up or not? Okay, that's 2. Excellent. So it looks like we need to sort of take this back a little bit. So who is familiar with open data? Another 2, 3. So that's that's a huge missing element in the conversations we're having today. Because a lot of what, I mean, it's not to say that all data has to be open. The principle is, is as open as possible, as close as necessary. But typically, data, we need to have data available to the different ministries or research institutes and be able to share this data. Quite often research is collaborative and multidisciplinary. So if we don't have ways of storing and sharing this data, some of the promise that we are seeking will not materialize as fast as they should. Then there are also other issues. There are biases in the global landscape of academic publishing, research sharing, and there is a tendency for Africa to be marginalized. Now, if we continue to subscribe to the models that marginalize us, then a lot of the promise we're discussing will not necessarily happen. So and it's also important to be aware of the global shifts. I tried to, when I interjected with Dr. Kadri's comment the last time, I tried to allude to it. So we have a global situation where the funders that generally fund even a lot of the research that happens here. So in the US, for instance, the National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, the US has come up with a position around open science, that any research that is publicly funded has to be open. So it means you have to provide the data and keep it somewhere that is open. You have to, the work that is derived from that experiment or the data itself and that your published journal has to be open. Now this is not just the US. So the US is, it's called the Nelson Memo. If you want to Google that, that's the short form, but it's the OSTF. But it's not just the US. So the US has done that, and the US is actually late on Europe had actually done that before the US, or around the same time. So the Council of Europe has done exactly the same. So all data, all publications funded by government has to be open. Now, we can make the arguments for open, but I'm just signposting those to say, well, this is work you have to make you more aware, since I didn't see the hands up, and make you look a little bit as well. So you need to be able to interrogate this on your own. We're not going to be able to do it entirely on the panel, but I want to be able to take questions since we're stimulating. Is that a lady from NOTAP? Fantastic. And now she's the one also that's the one canvassing for the women. So excellent, excellent. Please, welcome. So we're very grateful for our presence, because the conversation around data and openness brings up questions about intellectual property, patents, and so on and so forth. I would not, can you just please introduce yourself so at least everybody knows who we are? You can turn it off, Dr. Cardi. Put it on when you speak.
And Commercialization Department. And I bring you greetings from the Director General, National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, NOTAP. Thank you.
So for those that might not know, what does NOTAP really do?
Yes, as the name implies, National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, our core mandate is for registration of foreign technology agreements between foreign companies and Nigerian companies. What that means, foreign technology transfer agreements. These are invisibles, like trademarks, know-how that are used by industries. When they import it into Nigeria to use to run their business, they have to register with us. And we implement the guidelines, the rules applicable with each particular type of agreement. But if I start narrating that, it's not for this, but that there are certain approved limits that are in place. Then we also do the aspect, among our mandates, is also promotion of indigenous technology. And that indigenous technology, we have various departments handling that, e.g. like the Technology, Innovation and Commercialization Department, and Technology Acquisition Registration Coordination, and just some of us that we all do, all tied to promoting indigenous technology.
Which is now Digital Economy Ministry and Justice Ministry. Justice took the government part of it, and they actually did a lot of programs encouraging states to adopt it and have governance open, so you can have government to citizens, open communication. But the open data, which was more research-based, was giving over to the Comtech Ministry, and they were charged to develop a portal. What is happening in government would have access to those data, because it will be published in some portal that anyone can access, and then mine it, run some algorithm, and then you have all kinds of information. For instance, there's so much work done in oil and gas, but till tomorrow we depend on foreign technology, foreign solutions. A lot of money is shipped out of this country under services, because those IOCs, the international oil companies, they call themselves IOCs, but it means international oil companies, simply hide that money under services and say, our people, Nigerians, are not qualified for those kinds of services. So that's why there's a local content program in oil and gas to insist that ICT, for instance, should be a part of it. We have good people who have information. Now imagine if what oil and gas does, that sector, what they do every day, and some gentleman who is in Bogoro's, Professor Bogoro's Innovation Hub. Professor Bogoro, did he come today? Okay, so in that Innovation Hub, you can have one chap saying, how come since 1956, when Oloibri was found, and I've been to Oloibri, I've been to that well, actually. The place is poor, real rural, no development of any kind, but that's not the story. How come that length of time, almost how long, 50 years or more, we can't take that oil out ourselves and refine it? We depend on foreign companies, the Chevrons, the Shells, the Ajib, and we pay them a lot of, in fact, we pay them much more now because they regard Nigeria as a war zone.
On that data or integrate that data in a different manner, you need to be able to programmatically access that data. That means if that data is kept in a repository, because I hear people from the different ministries saying, oh, we keep the data on our website. It's there for you to see. Yes, I might be able to go there and click something and read it, but my application can't do exactly the same. So there are infrastructures that are used, data repositories that meet certain protocols and standards that are used to keep data so that you can do this, it can be machine readable. But I don't want to neglect my panelists. So I'm thinking, Mrs. Obi, sorry, Ada, yes, I forget your last name, I beg your pardon. So we are hearing this data conversation. How does it concern NOTAP at all? Is data an issue in your ministry? What is the current thinking?
Okay, for this event, because we understand it to be research, development, and innovation, one DCI that's under Innovation Science and Technology Ministry, intellectual property covers this, because that covers creative works of the mind and the outputs thereof, and it has its reward system built into it. What do I mean? When you talk about intellectual property, there are two arms to it. There's the industrial property, where you talk about patents, talk about industrial designs, talk about geographical indicators, trademarks, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't want to speak for that agency, because that's the commercial departments in the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade, and Investment. Then when you talk about copyrights, that's the second arm of intellectual property. That one covers works of written works, and it covers software. And one important thing that we clarify about software,
IPR, copyright, and how does it currently happen in Nigeria? Because I will go on to ask Dr. Kadri and Jerry about the
data, you can't just ask people to release works of their mind without having a reward process for it. Even in you say it's been done. When we talk about effect,
is being chunked out on daily basis. And why do we go through this research? Are you part of the authors? Because they want to guide against the interest and this ownership of people who are conducting this research. Prof yesterday mentioned something when I mentioned this issue of open science. He said, what about the patent? It's one thing for you to come up with this research idea when you develop it. The end of the whole thing is for you now to fight for that patent so that you'll be able to claim rights on your material, on your data by yourself, so that any other person cannot now come, steal your idea and go and build on it. And basically that's what we do in library and information science. We try as much as possible to collect information that are related to one another, so that by the time you are coming to it, you'll be able to have access to them in wholesome. And that's where research data management comes about. It tells you on how you organize your data, how you manage it, and how you present it to the whole world, so that anybody that is coming will be able to have access to that information. So data management, data science, open science, all work all in us in order to be able to coordinate related ideas together, and you'll be able to access that information the way you want it. And globally, what is being practiced now is this issue of diamond open access, whereby when you take your research reports to the global frontiers, you'll be able to have access to this information. You can download and you can make reference to them and use it. But when you are doing that, you still have to acknowledge the source whereby you are getting that information from. So it's much or less you are even giving credence to where that information is coming from, and you might get ideas from other areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I just want to sort of unpack some of the points you made there. One, because when you listen to NOTAP, you might get the impression that copyright prevents you from, opening your data. But when you listen to Dr. Kadri, she's saying that by opening your data, you are putting that provenance on it. By publishing that data, because that data is in the open, and it has you as the original publisher, what you are effectively doing is establishing, because you can get the copyright to that, even if it's even open, but because you have the copyright, and because it's open, then, and it's accessible, everybody knows it's yours. So some people, I was speaking to a gentleman here yesterday who's published a book, but it's been published by a commercial publisher. So he can't, to give that book out to somebody else, he has to buy it. He wrote it, but it's been published by a commercial publisher. For us to read it, we have to buy it. And then we have to remember that Africa in general, Nigeria is blessed in many ways, but we're a low resource environment when it comes to providing funding for research and models. That
look at how can we be able to increase these capacities. For example, we even had a number of grant opportunities earlier this year where we have been able to fund different open infrastructure, open data initiatives across the continent to kind of be able to catalyze their work. But also one of the things that we are seeing is, if you look at funding of open data, open infrastructure on the continent, the UNESCO actually recommends that we have at least 1% of GDP going into research and development. Across Africa, the only two countries that are closest to that is Kenya and South Africa, both of which are at 0.8%. So we are seeing a lot of shortfalls still in government funding. And when you look at this, because in Africa, there's so many different challenges that we have to solve. We have to solve issues of education, healthcare, agriculture. We're seeing that government cannot be able to solve all of these problems. So also one of the interesting things that we are looking at is how can we be able to form these public-private partnerships and kind of look at what can the private sector be able to contribute and what can the government be able to contribute. So for example, in this instance, the government in most instances is involved on the policy level. So can they be able to create that enabling environment for kind of private sector to now catalyze these works? Because private sector, they move at a much faster speed than the government. So also one of the things that we are trying to do is how now do we bring together these different stakeholders to the table to kind of see how can we be able to collaborate and how can we be able to catalyze capacity building on open science and open data, and also these practical initiatives to actually be able to accelerate. For example, when you're talking about things like infrastructure, these are physical things. For example, when you talk about high performance computing when you talk about things like content and data repositories, all of these things are things that need investment, and we're seeing that the only way that we can do it is to break out of that silo mentality, pull together the different resources and knowledge from these different entities, from the private sector and public, and then potentially that can be able to position us to be able to catalyze and accelerate this work.
Thank you, Jerry. So I don't know if if any of you were unaware of the WACREN 2024 conference it held earlier in the month in Abuja as well. In that conference, there was a particular panel of interest that I think is worth reviewing because the video is on YouTube. So it was a panel around agriculture, health, and climate, and how they converge, and how we can look to fund this in a holistic manner. As a matter of fact, the executive director of IOI was the moderator of that panel. And what came out of those was the West African Institute of Public Health was one of the panelists. He talked about something called respectful partnerships. Now, and that is the relationship I think Mrs. Ada was talking about when we work with foreign entities, how we work with them. Very often, we do not write into these agreements how this data that it drives these innovations or come out of these innovations are managed. What we need to keep with ourselves. I know that some government agencies, for instance, still work with partners where the data that they collect is kept in repositories outside Nigeria. So those are policy issues that we need to start to contend with. Within the RDI coordination space, I'm glad that these working groups are starting to get formed. These are issues that are going to be topical. But I would like to, does anybody have a question for the panelists or any question? Oh, the hands, excellent. There's one there. Where's the mic? Where are the ushers?
Thank you for the opportunity. I have a question. I work in a place where whatever research is going on in the country drops on my table, work on it, first get to the end users in the agri sector. And this will be doing in the 60s. Now, recently, we also work with development partners that give us funding to do work. Before approval is made, there's a signing of agreement of non-disclosure that we do. Now, but my question is, and I want my sister Ada to help me. Recently, a company based in Lagos asked me that they are working on, they have skills in AI, and that we should submit in collaboration our content. All we'll be doing since there is value to do in artificial intelligence. And I told the person, I'll get back to you. So what is your advice for me? I subjected this request to my staff, and we're still talking about it. What is your advice for me? We are public funded. This formation is on our domain, we have the content. And somebody wants to pick, it's a private firm, want me to drop the content for him for this. What is your, on this note of what you are discussing, open science, what's your advice for me?
So let your sister Ada respond first, then I will chip in as well. Do we want to take the questions? You want to note that question so you can respond to it? So there's a question at the end of the room.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Professor Sunday Atawadi from Federal University, Lokoja. We talk about open science, open data, and the people from the West will tell us is the best way to go. We may not know why many African professors are beggars. The big name is there, but no money in the account. The reason is not understanding the difference between publishing, collaboration, and what NOTAB is preaching. It was on the telephone that we are holding today. It's a military technology. It was in use for decades before it was made available to the rest of us. During that time, we never knew that technology was there, but you had no access. Similarly, the internet was a military technology developed in the US. It was there for decades. Other people had no access. It was when the pinching and the stealing of the technology was getting too much, it was made public. Why we are poor is that when we have original ideas, we rush to publish. I'm talking to, making reference to my colleague from Zaria, that when you are cited, it's not the same thing as being recognized. I will give you an example. I did some work in Germany on moringa some 20 years ago on how it is capable of preventing cancer and other diseases. All I got is maybe close to 400 citations on that paper, some invitation to a couple of countries, including Ghana. And not too long ago, I started seeing products coming from there with moringa as part of the component. I have no kobo out of it. So what is advisable is that when you have original innovation, you don't publish that. You publish the yeye aspect of your work and put the original in this until intellectual property is properly protected.
Because no man is an island. No, knowledge is not domiciled in a particular place. When we talk about IP protection, the essence of it is you that is working on it, you know that this is something new. We are not saying you should wait for the approval to come. We are saying at least start the process, because it is first to register. It is first to register. It's not a matter of and IP getting patent protection even outside the country can stay as long as 2 years, 18 months, even in US. So it's not something that, oh, you must wait until that 18 months. But we are saying, you that is working on it, you know that this thing is new. Get the protection that you need to do. But let me to focus on my Oga's question. Yes, you have this information, and the private person says he wants it. Like you said, you all signed a non-disclosure agreement. You need to know what is the information the person wants. Because that is the essence. Even when you publish a book, there's the notation of the C, which is the case copyright. So that when they want to take a particular so much, you know that you have to get back to the owner and obtain appropriate rights of saying, this is, at least let's know what you want to do. The owner knows what you want to do and why you want to use it. Because nobody wants your information to be used in a negative light, but at least it's in a positive light. And when they do that, it's what work they do, they carry you along, because we all desire for improvements. As carrying you along, you should be able to, it's a collaborative venture, so that when you finish, we acknowledge your work, because these are improvements of, this is, you want to improve on what is already existing. That is that aspect. So it's important for that private sector to liaise with you, tell you, come to a round table, let's discuss. In the second question, good enough. In most institutions where we encourage intellectual property technology transfer office, NOTAP has been able to encourage, we have at least over 60 in many institutions, both in universities, educational and research institutes. We encourage each institution to have an IP policy in place, so that every work that is being done, the institution, because you are using the institution facilities to do your research, and there should be some measure of reward to the institution, they are your employers, and some measure of reward to you. And then even when you get these things in place, taking it to the market, because taking to the market is key. That is the commercial aspect of it. you might not be able to take it to the market. Like when we talk about bringing in the private sector, we have collaborative efforts that we have with private sector, like the NOTAP Industry Technology Transfer Fellowship Program, where we encourage industries to sponsor PhD students. And those PhD students, we try to be that they are based within the university institution so that they will transfer knowledge that they gain. We have a success story where one of them developed, because it's sponsored by the industries, they paid the research funding, not have midwife seat. So she developed a baby formula, and it will say it belongs, the rights also belongs to the multinational group where she did that research with, because we have to be tailored to the need of the industry. That way they will be the off-takers of the outcome of that research. And even the PhD students, when you come back to school, you have innovative ideas, improved understanding of how to teach your students on what are the new developments within the sector. These are some of the programs we try to do to bring in the industry so that the industry, the innovation that is being created are tailored to the needs of the industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add, or do I? Because I was going to respond to some of what came up. So I'm sure in between the interventions here, you've heard the notion of, you call them the licenses. So the open environment has a number of licenses. So Mr. Adat described one. You know, licenses that require that when you use.
And when you look at this flyer, you're going to see Knowledge Enterprise Incubation and Acceleration Program. This particular platform takes you from ideation to commercialization in 9 months. Even if you have published and you actually want to innovate on what you have published, there is a pipeline you need to follow that will tell you what you need to do at every point, and essentially talking to some mentors that are actually going to be telling you about modeling, about traction, about experimentation within your experiment that can actually give you money. So when we're talking about hiding it, I don't subscribe to that. Nature, for many of us that are scientists, you know, one of the topmost journal in the world is looking at a future whereby whatever you are calling citation today is actually going to be done by people on the social media. That is the future. That's where we're going. So people are going to recognize and commend you everywhere. Not, you know, because when you talk about research publications, you are talking to people in your community, in your research community. When you publish something that I cannot understand what you are saying, because I'm just a member of the society, and I'm interested in having that solution, even including drug modeling that we do now. How many people can actually read and understand that drug, what you are talking about? You write it in your own jargon, you're actually speaking to your own people, and you are looking for money from the society. How do you connect? So it doesn't just make any sense. So the you need to actually have a business model right away from beginning. So, and you look at it from your ideation through different stages that you need to pass through, take it through an incubation, take it through an acceleration, and at the same time take it to when you need to launch. I said it to people, you could publish 100 papers. I myself have done in excess of 40. So, and I think I realized that I was wasting. So, and I need to stop that. And I did. So it's not about number of publications. I don't care, because even where I have some of my training in the US, I mean, professorship is just by fund attraction. That's when you actually have a chair. It's not by appointment, it's not by name. You actually need to earn it. You are coming with $100 million and they give you a professorial chair on a particular subject. So it is different from what we are doing here. So you cannot expect the result they get in that climb with the way they do things, while we are doing the other way and we're expecting the same result. So things has to change. The essence of this coordination, beyond what we are discussing, and open access, open data, is that by the time we have this community, it's going to change a lot of things in our orientation, and we need to actually know how many researchers are researchers for impact. That is where RIKESD derive its name. research for impact. After that, it moves on to say knowledge economy, because you can actually commoditize your knowledge. That's what we are saying. We don't have knowledge database. So we are saying knowledge as an asset can be traded. So for us at RIKSD, we are not looking at only saying we are incubating and accelerating you. We are not doing this one because we want to sell mango or anything. We are talking about innovative knowledge. So that's what the platform is. Finally, when you have done all of this, you will see that globally part of the challenge is that we are the marketplace, we are the trade knowledge item. So we have what we call RIKE marketplace. It's deliberate. That is where you could actually have your knowledge traded in such a way that you can have commercial value. So I want to say clearly here that it is not a given for us to be in Africa and be changing our age to retire at maybe when we are 96, because we are changing dates. Why? Salary and things we think we need to eat about. So some people as professors, early as 45, 50, retires in the US. And they go their way. Why? He has 437 patents. And those patents are of commercial value. And it has been commercialized. So the gap from what my brother is talking about is that, yes, they say I should have a patent to protect it. Yes, I've had it. What next? So what you have done is what they have told you to do. But there are more if you really want to make money. That's a game, another game entirely. And that is the game you need to learn from RIKSD. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, so yes. So maybe that gentleman who wants to make money needs to talk to Dr. Mab. But I was going to, because we do need to wrap this up, you know. So Jerry, in the context of all of this, right? And then I know that you are working with a number of funders.
I thought you were going to allow me to make my comment before you continue.
But I will come to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So, in that context with the funders, what are you hearing? What are the funders saying with regards to this openness of data, and where are they willing to put money?
Yeah, I think in terms of like the issue of funders, one of the things that we are seeing is, for the most part, it has been very difficult for Africans to actually be able to access funds, for example, from foundations or from outside donors. But actually right now we are seeing there's a lot more receptiveness to kind of looking at African research, because actually one of the things when you talk about the UNESCO recommendations is actually the fact that there's a kind of like a dominance of the kind of Western knowledge, and actually the UNESCO recommendations now are looking at how do we make sure that knowledge that is even not in traditionally kind of English or other languages is also valuable. Indigenous knowledge is valuable. And so we are seeing a lot of investments, particularly in healthcare, in agriculture, in ITC, particularly in fintech. I think those are the main areas we are seeing where we are seeing a lot of investment. For example, if you were to look at here in Nigeria, I think there's a very vibrant system, particularly for fintech. You have the Paystacks, you have the Flutterwaves, you have the cheaper cash, etc. So there's a lot of money that's coming into these pockets. And I think one of the important things that when you talk about data, and actually how do you make sure that your data is actually more kind of palatable to kind of these funders, is it's important to look at data and make sure that data is in line with the FAIR principles. So the FAIR principles is data needs to be findable, it needs to be accessible, it needs to be interoperable, and it needs to be reusable. I think those 4 parameters are things that make your data and your research more likely to kind of get funding from outside sources.
Thank you particularly for bringing that up. Store that data. there are 60 years of data that we have there that is not findable, is not accessible, it is not interoperable or reusable, is a problem. It means the value in that data has not been unlocked. But I hear that this session is coming to a close. So I will thank my panelists. Thank you very much. I know it was impromptu, but this was a subject that needed to be addressed, and we're glad you could come here and discuss this. So, sir, we will take this offline. I don't think there's not any more time for that now, but we can, during the networking sessions, we can actually have a more conversation. So thank you very much. And thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
So many of you were here yesterday, but I will ask Dr. Bobola to take the microphone right up here and give more information as to what we expect the next session to be like, a continuation of the previous one yesterday. But please listen to him. There are nuances you need to pay attention to as you proceed to the next think tank on the 8 particular areas of attention. You have the mic now.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being on this trail with us since 2 days ago. And I think this is going to be the 3rd day. So a lot of work have actually gone into what you are doing, and you are guided by the templates we've given to you. Ultimately, we are looking at a conclusive note today. And as you move on into this particular assignment now, which is essentially for you to wrap up on what you begin, we want to see some clear outcomes as detailed in your template. Ultimately, we are looking at a situation whereby what we have has a mapping between RDI, the activity sectors of our economy, like we have mentioned some of them, the facilitators will have told you, and finally, mirroring clearly what the priority areas of the president is talking about, and how can we use RDI to interrogate that. So if we are able to actually see that from an ideation point, from the beginning to the end, you are going to be helping us to actually be able to do some evidence synthesis, which is going to be a section that will be something we need to do maybe in like a week or more, and people are going to be involved in all of that. Then it is expected at your group level that your chairman emerges immediately, possibly if you're going to have a deputy chair and secretary. We need that right away now. Later today in the afternoon, we're actually going to be looking. Part of the challenge we've been actually grappling with is that when you look at the country, apart from NIPS, I don't think there's any other national think tank that is that well recognized. There could be, I'm not saying, but there are a lot of issues. So if you go into any business school, they will tell you that where you have problems, that is where the money is. Because when you are solving the problem, there's going to be a lot of money and opportunity. Why is it that people are not making money in Nigeria despite all the problems? Because, I mean, if it is problem you are looking for, you will see multidimensional problem in Nigeria. And we have many people that are having talent. So if you could see some white people flying into the country and they are doing it and they are actually making it big. Let me challenge us now. Maybe you are not thinking or you are not seeing what I'm already saying. In the food sector, I'm not saying agriculture. When you look at agriculture and you have agricultural products, whatever you make out of agricultural products, you are going to make like times 5 or 6 or 10 of it when you are in the food processing sector. Does that make sense to you? Ordinarily, I'm saying you are taking your cassava flour and you have your restaurant. So I'm not saying even industry now. So why is it that nowadays, the top restaurants in Nigeria are not owned by Nigerians? You know those people that own them because you eat there. Have you ever tried to check what's going on? The top restaurant you want to be, people that are running it majorly in our major cities are non-Nigerians. So the issue here is that we are not making the hard labor we are doing on the farms. And when you're talking about innovation, invention, and everything we have been talking about, we are not talking about it theoretically here. So the point is that we want a situation whereby whatever we are saying has impact on the economy. That's what I want to underline. So technical facilitators, take note. We want to see the intervention of RDI clearly in your solution, meaning that I want a situation whereby your results are smart. It makes sense to anybody that cares to make sense out of it. Because all those your reports are going to be subjected to evidence synthesis that's going to be driven by data. So at the end of the day, we don't want just talk. There are many talk we have been talking about. That is not what we want in our result. What we want is something that is different, that can be interrogated both locally and internationally, and we could actually make a lot of sense out of it. 1 + 1 should be 2, except if we change the base. Am I making sense? Well, if you change the base, it might not be the same thing again. But please let us keep it as 1 + 1 at a normal base. So we are not talking about solutions that are not implementable. That's my point. So let's try as much as possible to be that focused. You have between now and 1:30 to actually do that. In the evening, like you see in your program, you're going to have the inaugurations of that we are. I mean, we are thinking of having in terms of steering committee and some other things that might have come. We are expecting 2 guests, and a couple of them anyway, but 2 of them have actually indicated that they are going to be closing that with us. Honorable Minister of Budget and Planning was committed. He was actually supposed to be here 11 a.m. yesterday, but he has accepted to come and close this event officially. He's going to be talking about innovative funding opportunity for all this activity we are talking about. Let me say this to you. Part of what I learned when I was in management consulting about 10 years ago was that there was a fund that was in Nigeria. It came in from Japan. And instead of you, when you take a loan, for example, of 1 million naira, you are expected to pay back 950. Have you heard of that before? Maybe you are not getting what I'm saying. You are paying back at a discount. Not at an interest. It's a loan. But you are paying back at a discount as a business owner. So meaning that whatever you gain is yours, you are not paying any interest. That particular funding was residing in Nigeria National Budget and Planning Ministry. So when we are talking about what happens around all of this, that is why we need people like that around. So we are actually going to be having diaspora dimension too, which is essentially for us to have the chairman of Nigeria in Diaspora Commission. We want to open another window. So we people are here, we are doing our work. You will look at our greatest knowledge assets are actually abroad. Do you agree with me? So go to anywhere, open the door is Nigeria. Oh, this one is Nigeria. So those guys, we actually want to open an interface with you so that we can actually do the co-creation, both local and international. In all of these, we need your commitment and support. And thank you so much. Be focused on what you need to do and let us move. Thanks.
So please, the group work can resume where we ended yesterday. And you have the template. The rapporteurs are properly briefed. So we are looking to set the low-hanging fruits, the outcomes for immediate action, the short term, 2 to 3 years, the mid-term, 5 years, and the long-term, 10 years. Those are and they should be actionable. They should be action with the action verb. Thank you. And measurable at the same time. So thank you. If you need any assistance, please call on us as usual. Have a great session. 2 hours. We'll go by 1 p.m. We'll have a break by 1 p.m. so our Muslim brothers and sisters can pray, whilst those who are not fasting can have a p.m. tea, and then we'll extend the program and have lunch at the end of the day. Thank you so much.